If you're thinking, I should go for a run today, but it looks like it could rain, Sierra says save on epic rain jackets. If you're also thinking, but I can't go out in these beat-up old running shoes, Sierra says save on top brand running shoes. And if you're still thinking, but I'm also busy performing brain surgery, well, then we say, you really should have led with that. Sierra, let's get moving to your local store, like now. Go!
Hail cheaters! Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. It is the next to last podcast of the 2023-2024 season. I guess technically we have two more to go because we'll do a Patreon one together. So I don't even know what day we're going to do it. Maybe Thursday, Friday. The world is our oyster, Brandon, as you like to say. I say oyster, you say oyster.
And, it's a regional thing. Yeah. It's a dialectical thing.
Yeah, you're from mid-Michigan. I'm from Western Michigan.
Yeah, I think, speaking of like our last podcast for our Patreon supporters, kind of like more broadly for everybody listening, how do you approach Game Week 38?
Yeah.
When do you actually start thinking about it? Obviously, as engaged fantasy managers, we're always thinking about the next move, but we're still in the midst of this massive double game week in 37.
Right.
Some people,
even the single fixtures, right? You still have Liverpool Villa, which is big Champions League implications to play as well.
Yeah, and I honestly, Josh, thinking about Game Week 38, I'm excited to focus my energy on some what I would call single game weekers for once in my life. Yep. Feels like it's been a while. And you said this is the end of the 2023-2024 season. I honestly don't remember anything that's happened in 2023. So it's been a long, one.
There was no death of a queen.
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's the monarchy is, it's struggled this year, honestly. The monarchy is having some problems, Brandon, but you and I we'll save that for our monarchy chat.
The monarchy's overall rank is like, well, where would you put it? Like somewhere around 7.5 million?
Lower than mine. Yeah, where am I right now? I'm actually doing this bag. I don't know. First of all, there were lots of complaints about me whinging too much in last week's pod. So there's gonna be a whinge-free pod for me, Brandon. I have decided that I am in the it's the end of school, right? Mm-hmm. It's 12th grade, or I don't know what. They have 12. I really don't know how it works in England, Brandon. But I finished my A-levels.
You're taking your A-levels right now.
Yeah, exactly. The A-levels have been completed, and now I'm just the teacher is not given any longer assignments. Right? It's maybe you have some tests in the classroom. Nothing you're taking home. There's no 5-paragraph essays that you have to complete.
I wonder if there's somebody out there who's a real tech whiz, if they could build sort of a live meter reading into like our YouTube and podcast of if you get like too far into the whinge scale, like an alarm would go off and you have to like reel it back a little bit, like in real time.
It's like one of those meters. It's like you're redlining, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I unfortunately have redlined for about 38 weeks this season, as everybody knows. I've been in the red zone for probably a little too long for my long-term physical. Mentally, I'm fine. My mental health is good. My physical health, I don't know. That's for me and my body to decide on.
You and your GP, for sure.
I know.
So there was this incredible video that the Wolverhampton Wanderers posted to their social media about suicide prevention and mental health. Highly encourage people to give that a Google.
Appreciate you sharing that with me with no context.
Yeah,
you just dropped it into my my chat.
Yeah, just so do with this what you will, Josh.
We shared it with my wife as well, and
make sure he watches.
Make sure he watches this. Yeah, that felt aggressive, but you know what, your heart was in the right place.
Yeah, so. It was. I'm looking out for you, buddy. No, seriously, it's been a grueling season, and as always, like the aim of Always Cheating is, can we make it fun? Can we make it enjoyable? Can we speak to what it is to just be like a real manager, whether you're high on your luck or down and out?
Is it always grueling? Like, do we, like, I honestly, it's like, I can't remember. Like, I don't feel like last year felt grueling, but there's always something that I guess it really depends on whether you're like a glass half full kind of person,
Yeah.
right? Because this was a fairly clean year in terms of there were no postponed fixtures, really. Outside of things getting moved, obviously for cups and things like that. There was no like COVID type stuff. There was no super compressed schedule like with the Winter World Cup last year. I feel like the thing that made the season the thing that made the season trying for me was my poor decision making. Right, right. I'm happy to pin some of it on myself, but I do think that the injury stuff was extraordinary, right? And this is something that very much transcends fantasy. That it was a year where it was. I mean, honestly, it was like the year of the injury. I mean, you can almost point to. Was there a single club that was kind of immune from it? I mean, you maybe look at Arsenal have had some decent injury luck, but even they have had.
I mean, Julian Timber, like their whole, like one of their bigger defensive signings, out after game week 1, more or less.
Gabriel Jesus missed a ton of time. Who was the starter in midfielder today?
Thomas Partey.
Thomas Partey. He missed like half the season. So and so they were like one of the lucky ones, right? But if you look at Newcastle or Man United, Chelsea, it's kind of
on
wild.
Top of the injury crisis, and I agree with your assessment there. I think managers are getting increasingly canny in like cloaking all of their
the press.
Not. Yeah, and you can argue it many different ways, and we always try to put forward the NFL sort of like, here are the rules. You got to put out an injury list, etc. But I get why Premier League Premier League managers try to take every advantage that they can, but it seems like that is becoming more and more the strategy for managers to get any kind of edge that they can. You think you're going to build a whole day's training session around whether Bruno Fernandes is going to play or not? Ha.
Yeah.
Now,
what did you end up keeping? So when you and I potted on Thursday, I was on the fence about whether to keep Bruno. I ultimately did. I made 2 terrible transfers instead. They felt like good transfers, but whatever, didn't work out. Again, staying positive this week, or at least if not positive, I'm not going negative. Okay. I'm like a politician. I refuse to go negative right now. If negative ads are run, Brandon, that's someone else's.
It's like your super PAC ran those.
Yeah, my super PAC did that stuff exactly. So are you? Did you end up keeping Bruno, or did you sell him?
So the idea was I was going to sell Bruno for an Arsenal midfielder, but then on Friday after we had podcasted, Ten Hag said, "Oh yeah, Bruno trained. We're good to go here." And then
Mount was out. So you thought, to me, there was a little bit of like, well, they really probably need it's an important match for them, right? And they're playing, Arsenal at home. So if Mount is out and Bruno trained, it feels likely that he'll play in this match.
And to quickly be fair to Manchester United fans, I thought United, especially in the second half, played really well without Bruno. But so the Bruno is training news came simultaneously with the João Pedro is out news, and João Pedro was part of my -8 to get Haaland back in.
Yeah.
So I made what felt like a really sort of the season's creator sort of a move where I moved João Pedro to Danny Welbeck, and that was my one free transfer. Now Danny Welbeck did get an assist and a yellow card, a 4-pointer with 1 match still to go.
Some
with
chances
Welbs.
too. He had some chances. So you got an assist on that
the corner kick.
Yeah, the corner kick. Okay,
the Veltman goal. Exactly.
Yeah.
It was very hard to make out in real time. You're like, was that off of Webster? Who was what happened
an own
here?
Goal? Yeah, it was a weird. It took a strange angle.
Yeah.
It was just a fluky kind of strange goal.
So just to litigate all that transfer saga stuff, I felt like I made a good move in bringing Welbeck in, just in terms of the budget that I had. It was between him and Mateta. Now Welbeck could earn out because he's got the extra fixture. But then Bruno being out for what looks like both games in 37 now feels terrible because I have no Arsenal players. And this is like when we look back at this season and sort of the traps I fell into, it's just it really is a season for me defined by too much strategy around double game weeks, and that leads to taking out good players from good teams. And Bruno should be an Arsenal player. Now, to some degree, I got away with it because the only real, Kai Havertz is becoming increasingly owned by fantasy managers because he's in such good form. Trossard, like, where's the love for Trossard in the fantasy community? This guy cannot stop scoring goals.
Yeah, they've both been great, Trossard and Haaland, honestly.
Yeah. Saka limping off yet again. I'm sure we'll see him in game week 38. I mean, this is like obviously such a huge match for Arsenal.
And a yellow card though too. Yeah, a good match, not to
painful. Painful for people who were on the other side of who had Odegaard or Saka, etc. So anyway, Bruno has got to be out. And the way Ten Hag has now come out to the press and said, it looks like, quote, it looks like Bruno's not going to be good for the Newcastle match either, which means I feel like we'll never see him play for Manchester United again. Or Ten Hag, or he's just waiting Ten Hag out for the summer.
Yeah. So it feels like there was a little bit of didn't tell the whole truth on Friday, right? Like he was basically like Bruno trained.
Yeah.
And now it's like Bruno's never played for us again. It feels like something happened. Something changed.
Yeah. No, just an interesting sidebar to me is there's this clip of Wayne Rooney going around now post match where he's sat next to Roy Keane. Talk. You want to hear whinging and complaining? Just listen to an ex Manchester United great, and that's all you need. But Wayne Rooney was saying there are many. Definitely 100% he knows for sure many injured Manchester United players who could play, but they are choosing to not play.
Yeah.
And when are we going to stop calling out Manchester United players and managers for that matter and just burn that boardroom and that stadium down to the ground and start from scratch?
Exactly. It feels like there's a real culture. I mean, obviously they have the new ownership group, although not complete ownership, but whatever. There's some changes coming. Yeah. So maybe that changes things a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't feel great. I agree with you there. And I mean, this is not our it is fantasy relevant because now you and I both have a Bruno problem to solve, right?
And this is a great way to come back to, because we started the season with Manchester United assets like Bruno and Rashford.
God, that's so true.
And I had Onana, and that screwed us at the start of the season, and now it's killing us again.
Yeah.
We've got a real beef with the ownership group here.
Not that you and I have any idea, but do you think he's telling that Rooney's telling? I have no reason to think he would make that up, right? I'm sure that probably is true.
I'm sure Rooney is right to a degree, but it's just way more nuanced than I think that soundbite makes it feel like. It makes it seem like the failures of the performances strictly come down to players not owning up or fronting up or whatever.
Sure.
When you have to take a whole organization into whatever happens on that pitch. And as you use that word culture, what's going on with the culture from the top, whether it's absentee ownership or whatever, all the way down to, the water boy sort of a thing. So if a player refuses to play and fakes injury, that's not just down. I mean, the player's got to take responsibility, but that is also a product of an environment that should be looked after more carefully by the managers, staff, the ownership, etc.
Yeah, and I don't really know. What puzzles me is, I mean, I guess it's really a Glazer problem, right? Because they've cycled through lots of different styles of manager at this point. I don't think. Obviously Klopp made it, but I know we're getting very far off fantasy. But you know what? It's almost game week 38, Brandon. That's hard not to.
We're good on the fantasy chit chat.
Yeah, I have one transfer and no money in the bank. Okay, there's my options are pretty limited this week.
Yeah,
and I also I have nothing. I'm this might be the first game week 38 dead rubber I might have ever had, probably at least in 8 or 9 years, where I have nothing to play for. It's the strangest feeling. I guess we're just going to go into this. I guess the big hope is just that Spurs are able to take up 2 points right? Or they're able to take a point, right?
Yeah.
In other words, deny Man City 3 points.
Yeah.
I said that in the weirdest possible way, but like basically, the Spurs get a draw or a win on Thursday, and then we have a classic head-to-head Premier League final.
I mean, City could still lose on the final. Like, it doesn't have to come down to Spurs.
They could, although their match is fairly straightforward.
They're hosting West Ham.
Yeah, they're hosting West Ham. Who
they
really,
did their Moyes send off this weekend,
exactly.
So that season's over.
Hard to imagine West Ham given even a chance of a strong performance in that one.
I have one thing to play for, and I'm in a random head-to-head league through our Discord that doesn't have playoffs, and somehow mid-season I managed to rack up a series of wins, and I kind of had to win out this week and next week, and I didn't
realize this. Okay, all right, you got something.
The Splats Shark Trophy, I think, is what it's called. So I've got something. It's definitely like the Intertoto Cup, I think.
I have said this many times that head-to-head is a place for people. I am a big fan of we have a couple of head-to-head leagues for our Patreon supporters and stuff, and that I actually made the semifinals of that. If I had done, congrats to Paul, our old buddy Paul, who's who always
Paul P?
Paul P, who's had my number all season. But I think for anyone who's looking to juice next season, right? Maybe there's your husband and wife together, and I don't know, whatever it is, right? Or like two brothers, two good friends. You and I have done head-to-head leagues with each other on and off all for many years. We got out of the habit of it. We got to start doing it again. I think it's because you and I ended up in like 37 different mini leagues over the last couple of years. Yeah. But an individual head-to-head is fun because you always have stakes, even when things don't really matter. And for whatever reason, it feels like every time you and I have done head-to-heads, it's come down to like the last week or the last 2 weeks of the season. So, that's a fun way to juice things a little bit. I mean, honestly, if you what about this? Why don't you and I do a head-to-head this for Game Week 38? Why don't we put $10 on it or something like that? Me versus you, Josh versus Brandon.
Simple as that. It's so elegant.
I like how hesitant you are. You don't want to do this. You know what? I'll retract. I'll find someone else who's got a little more.
Honestly, I want to do it. Let's take the stakes talk offline.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. But $10 again. I mean, dear venison steaks that I will be buying you after the win.
No, I'm not sheepish about all that. I've been watching on Instagram. There's this guy. What's he called? Like Tintin something. He's this New Zealand guy who he bets 10 cents every day on blackjack for every follower he has. And of course, as the internet does, things go viral, and his followership keeps growing. He has over 1 million followers now. So every day he's betting like $120,000 on one hand of blackjack. It's so I've been thinking a lot about steaks.
Interesting.
Juicy, delicious red meat.
It's funny how like it doesn't really matter as long as there are stakes, right? Like there's something about there's a TikTok I've been watching recently where this guy is trying to get 18 pars in a row, and he golfs every single day. It's 18 pars in a row.
Wait. And so he doesn't want to get a birdie even?
Well, no, just par better, right? So it's gotcha. Birdie would be fine too.
That
but just
would be weird.
Par,
like missing
exactly.
Really,
missing a 2-footer.
On.
No, I think it's just that par better. And the best he's done so far, he got 6, which was this just happened over the weekend. It took 3 YouTube videos for it to happen, or 3 TikTok videos. But it was funny because I was talking to a friend of the pod, Trevor, and it turns out he also watches this TikTok, and I bet there are some people listening right now who also have watched this dumb TikTok. It was just this guy who's like, he's like a 25-year-old. And he just goes out there with his brother, and he just golfs until sometimes he gets 0. He literally just goes out there and gets 0 pars, and then he just comes back the next day.
I love it.
There's something it's very fun. I
love the internet.
It's like 95 days in. I do love the internet myself. So anyway, we're not having our best seasons, but we're keeping our sense of humor about it. It's all fine. It's all good. And hopefully again, well, like you said, no matter what, even if Spurs do win, this weekend, they could still draw it home to, I mean, we saw this, obviously it didn't happen, right? Like the Man City ultimately did come back and win the famous Aguero year in 2011, but lest we forget, that was, that was a Queen's Park Ranger team that also had nothing to play for, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't like they were playing to stay up or anything like that. They had nothing to play for, and they almost won, and they almost drew.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't know what's going to happen in Game Week 38, no matter what happens in midweek. So Arsenal have done their job. They went into, they went away to they played away to Spurs, away to Man United, won both those matches. That is not easy, right? That is an impressive result, I think, in both cases, no matter how many injuries these squads have. So they've done the business.
And you can't say for Arsenal, like, well, if you would have just gone out there and beat City, then maybe the story would be different. They beat City and drew with City. They took 4 points from 6.
Yep.
And I'm not an Arsenal fan, but I will feel bad for them. And it feels, why does it feel slightly different than the whole Liverpool v Man City sort of run? I don't know why it does, but somehow it feels slightly more.
It does actually remind me a little bit of that year when they had the great match where they
the
John
Leroy
Stones,
Sané goal.
Yeah, the Sané goal, the famous Stones clearance, and that had actually a similar vibe to it. There was a moment where Man City got just a little bit ahead, right? Like it was like 1 or 2 points, and they just stayed there week after week after week after week after week, and that's so I would say it feels a little similar to that for sure.
Right.
But I mean, ultimately it is what it is. I mean, I think Arsenal have every reason to. This feels different than last year. Last year it felt like a little more of a kind of, I don't know if choke is even the right word, because maybe they got there a little earlier. But this year it feels like they pretty much did what they could, and if they don't win the title, I don't think it feels kind of like pointless to go back. Like you said, they took 4 from 6 from Man City, right? It's like, you can look back at the Aston Villa match or whatever, but almost everybody drops a match they shouldn't, right? That's just part of
it's the beauty of the 38 game week season, in that it really does tell a full story. It does give you a full picture.
Yeah.
Even if there are going to be some fluke results in there, that kind of just is kind of baked into the formula. So it's always really kind of hard to argue that any champion isn't a fair champion, unless you want to get into whole like dark petrodollar conversations, which we don't have time for that tonight.
No, we don't. I mean, there is something to be said for just literally having so much money that you can buy incredible squad depth, and it allows you to handle injuries better. I mean, that is, I think, the biggest difference. Although Arsenal have pretty good squad depth this year too. So it feels like you could always play that card, right? And then at some point it becomes very tedious, and you're like, okay, like if you're just going to play this card forever, like maybe watching the Premier League just isn't for you, right? Because like the money is just baked into it.
Yeah,
and that's kind of.
I mean, you just go. You could say, well, go watch chess, and then you're like, well, yeah, but they're like cheating with anal beads in chess. So maybe just read
competitive sport is
start reading Romanticy. I think is really
just read military history, right?
It's
fine.
One person's Romanticy is another person's 20th century military history for sure.
Exactly. Romanticy. Is that what they call it? The historical romance? Is that romantic?
Sure. It was good versus evil. It was all very operatic,
Outlander type stuff. All right. Well, I'm going to do an Always Cheating Super League check-in. Obviously it's midweek, but we don't always, because of these funky, and by the way, the double game week stuff is pretty much over after this year, which is, there'll be a couple, but it's going to be much, much different. And I for one am excited about that, because I think, planning individual transfers, selective hits, things like that, that's just, to me, more interesting than banking my season around dropping my best players to maximize a double game week, right?
It 100% tanked my run of green arrows.
Exactly. It's like you were saying before. Exactly. So, all right. So anyway, Always Cheating Super League. And these people are all doing well, much better than us, Brandon. So let's give them a little shine.
Good on them.
In 10th, Jake Holton. In 9th, Christian Larich. In 8th is Lawrence Poost. Lawrence Poost, Brandon. That's a name you don't forget easily. He's been, what's the word? He's been very stable inside the top 10. A mainstay, yeah. Byron Green in 7th. Jonathan Okerut in 6th. Matthew Allen in 5th. Chris McMenamin in fourth, Dan Simpo in third, Ben Houghton in second, and Rasad Khan is in first.
Nice.
So very close, by the way, between Ben Houghton and Rasad Khan, both on the bench boost, separate by 4 points. So that's really going to come down to the wire between those two. And again, of course, we have the double game week still to play. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and just looking at Rashad Khan's overall rank, he is number 8 in the world. So incredible ranks for these folks higher in the higher echelons of the Super League.
You and I were just a little bit back of them. So it's
remind me how many top 10 finishes you have in your fantasy career.
yeah. I've got you said 10,000, right? Top 10,000.
Close enough.
Close enough. All right. So, but we mentioned the Patreon. Brandon's in New York this whole week, actually, and we're going to record. You'll be staying in my home, my apartment, starting Thursday.
It's going to be like Larry and Belky, basically.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's gonna be fantastic. Perfect Strangers style. So we're going to do something. I think we might end up doing like a live video type thing, just because we'll be together in person. So we'll do that for our Patreon supporters later on this week, and take questions and just whatever. Talk about furniture, which everybody loves. Everybody loves our furniture talk segments.
It's huge.
That's me being sarcastic there. But you can, and also you can get on the Discord. You can. You know what? You can even criticize my transfers, Brandon. That's a thing.
Free reign. People can just take you to the mat.
Free reign. I'm glad I woke up to that after I'd already made my transfers. But yeah,
it's like the always cheating dunk tank. Like
it is. It's like
you've got a channel for your team. I've got one for my team, and
the price.
We freely welcome patrons to just come in there and toss a ball and dunk us.
That's right, exactly, and it's like a price we pay for having the day. It's like exactly. I can be very defensive about my transfers. I try to just drop it in there, and anyway. So, but thank you to everyone who supported the podcast this season. If you want to say thanks, we will. I guess it'll be like July 1 will be the month we don't. It's always like a month later. But anyway, we offer the summer when we'll come back in July with the pod. So in June when we're off, we won't charge our patrons. So if you want to join, you're not going to be paying for no content. You can just be part of the Discord, and we'll let you know when pods come back. But thank you to our two new patrons, Steve Radojic. How do you Radojic?
How am I going to say this? I would say
Radojic.
Radojic. That's a Ask Siri sort of situation for me.
Yeah. And sorry, Steve, for that, but thank you for becoming a Patreon supporter. And Morton Lund Anderson as well. Very similar to Morton Anderson, the great field goal kicker, Brandon.
Yeah.
So
also the great Immortan Joe.
The Morton Joe.
Fury Road.
Ooh, that's a nice. Yeah, that's one of our new sponsors. Is the new Mad Max movie.
Wouldn't that be cool if Immortan Joe had just started following and supporting the?
He's like advertising water like on our podcast.
That is really what that sort of outpost was all about. Immortan Joe basically just had a big water Patreon going.
Yeah, exactly, and he got to have. Wives or whatever. I don't really, they don't get into
lots
all
of benefits
of
at the higher tiers.
A lot of things
Patreon.
left. Yeah, that's true. The producer levels are pretty wild in that one. All right. Well, let's get into the theme of today's pod, which is basically it's kind of a tricky one. It's really very team dependent. A lot of the things a lot of decisions that people are making are. It's similar to Game Week 37, I guess, in some ways, although. To be totally honest, unless you're super tight, I think in general that in 38, people can sometimes, unless you're like chasing by 40 points, 30, 40 points, I actually think in some ways just putting together the best possible team and captaining the player you think is going to score the most points is like basically being more straightforward is actually the best approach. I have had multiple times in the last handful of years where I have been either just in first or just chasing, and I got like a little too cute with 38, right? Yeah. And like went like a little off the beaten path with my captains. And if I had just my 11 would have been good enough, right? If I hadn't gotten too cute. And so I think it's something to keep in mind is maybe don't don't double game week it, right? As we kind of said earlier, don't sort of get away from what's worked in order to kind of maximize something, right? Or to talk yourself into, oh, well, this is like, there's so much upside in this. I have no choice but to do it, right?
I do think there's like it's not quite a middle ground, but it's so if the spectrum is on one end, what you're talking about, like just kind of like do the sensible thing, that's probably what's going to work best in 38. And the other end is go crazy. Somewhere in the middle, closer to being sensible, is there's probably a favorite player of yours that's also good and a good fantasy asset. I'm thinking kind of like in the zone of Odegaard and De Bruyne.
Sure.
Game week 38 always feels to me like a great week to say, you know what, I'm just going to get in one of my favorite players who has legitimate fantasy claim. And that just kind of makes it a little bit more fun to watch those matches play out for some. True. But in general, I do agree with you. And like, as is our wand, we always get together with a big group of people for game week 38. And there's nothing worse than seeing the entire crowd enjoying the spoils of fantasy, and you're the odd person out because you made a far afield decision. Now that could go the other way, where you're the one who took the risk, and suddenly you're the only one celebrating, and everyone there is like looking at you like, "Holy crap, you're a genius."
It's just never happened, right? It's the
rarely does.
The idea is great. It's just in practice, it has not happened.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
With everyone fighting for attention, how can your business stand out and connect with customers? Easy, with Constant Contact. Constant Contact's award-winning marketplace platform has helped millions of small businesses stand out, stay top of mind, and see big results fast. It's okay if you don't know much about marketing. Constant Contact's writing assistant tools and automation features help you craft messaging and say the right things at the right time. I use this to help write and send my email newsletters, and you should too. So get going and start growing your business today with a free trial at ConstantContact.com. Just go to ConstantContact.com right now. Constant Contact, helping the small stand tall. ConstantContact.com. Whether you're a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring podcasts on the Blue Wire Network. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or EE System. If you haven't heard of the EE System yet, then you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Wherever you are across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. Interested in experiencing the EE System technology for yourself? Go to unifiedhealing.com/bluewire to learn more and find a center near you. That's unified, UNIFYD, healing.com/bluewire. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including EE System.
That is one piece of advice. I think obviously the clear captain pick for 38 would be Haaland. If you wanted to be Well, I mean, there is Salah, although Salah's a hard player to get to unless you already have him in your squad, right? Like, I don't think, like, again, this is an example of getting over your skis, right? Like, yeah, could Salah have a great match at home, final match against Wolves? Of course, right? Is it worth a -8, right, to bring him in if you've got a, it's when Haaland is probably going to outscore him anyway, right? Like, it probably isn't. I think you could look at Cole Palmer, home to Bournemouth. I would like to see Isak do a little better at midweek before I recommend him for the Brentford fixture. I think Saka, honestly, you could go with like one of 4 Arsenal players, right? You could go Odegaard, Saka, Havertz, or Trossard. And I think all 4 of those would be.
What do you think about this Arsenal Everton fixture though? Because Everton are in scintillating defensive form.
Yeah.
And granted, they'll be going up against the best attack in the league, just in terms of goal difference. So how does it play out? I feel like it's not going to be a crazy high scoring match. Arsenal will certainly not want to lose.
It feels like they Everton just had their goodbye match, right? They started Coleman and Young at home to Sheffield United, got the 1-0 win. They had their points hit. They wrote it out. It's like their season's over. So it's hard for me to see them going into 38 and having anything that they feel like playing for. Whereas Arsenal are, I mean, in some ways, maybe that's freeing to them. Like, so maybe they score in this match just because it's like, because they feel loose or whatever. But this to me is, I see what you're saying, but I actually think the reverse is more likely to be the case. That I think Arsenal could score like 3 or 4 in this match. And just
I don't think you're wrong. I think it's just kind of an interesting matchup to talk about for the final game week. And if you compare it to the other really big opportunities, and you named them, Liverpool, City, I think are the biggest ones. Then Chelsea and Arsenal. Yeah. And
I think, you could go Foden too if you just wanted to have a Man City player. Foden was probably he's looking like the best captain pick for 37.
If Foden has a good match against West Ham, he will be player of the season, and he can't be blind to that moment for his career.
You win $1,200, Brandon.
You get a free stress ball from the fantasy
free stress
game?
ball and $1,200. Exactly. You get tickets to
incredible.
it. Foden gets tickets to a match of his choice. Actually, it's incredible. So.
I'm definitely going to. Let's see, which match am I going to in this fixture?
It'd be incredible.
Burnley Forest.
Foden just like shows up at Ipswich, Ipswich Villa next year.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just want to be a little different with my free game. And
amazing. Yeah. Welcome back to the league, Ipswich.
I know we have never had since you and I have been doing this pod. We have not had. When was Ipswich last in the league?
I think it's been 50 years.
50 years? Oh, even longer then. Okay, wow. So that's fun. It's just always fun when there's a new. Congrats to Ipswich for making it. That's it really, especially because this year, unfortunately, it looks extremely likely now that the 3 promoted teams are all going to go straight back down. And Luton was a lot of fun this year. The wheels came off right at the end. I really thought they were going to get a point in the West Ham match. I thought it was written in the stars, Brandon, because then it would have been pretty straightforward in game week 38. You basically they would have needed to win, and then they would have needed Forest to lose, which certainly would have been possible. I mean, it's Burnley, but it's still they're away.
It wouldn't be enviable for Forest to be away at a team fighting for pride at the very least.
But now we need Luton to win by like 7 goals and Forest to lose by 5 or something like that. Yeah. You need to basically like a 12-goal swing for Luton.
I mean, we could see Tim Ream at center back for Fulham in this game week. So, 8 goals is on the table.
Yeah, Fulham put up a good fight in the first half of that match.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they've proved to be a sturdy team. As everything shook out here at the end of the season, Fulham is clearly just like the worst of the mid-table sides.
The Fulham Kite Flyers, man.
It's an incredible video. But so, I mean, yet another club in Fulham where if they have a good summer and make some key signings, they'll be right back in the mix again next season.
I think this is the kind of season that has to be hugely encouraging, because now they're in the like Crystal Palace realm where it's like it feels like there's a baseline of competency there that's just going to keep them.
They've reestablished a club culture, sort of like what we were talking about, and the opposite with Manchester United, where
I see a half decade of Fulham just cruising into 14th place just year after year, which is honestly not a bad spot to be, right? It's
dynasty.
Like, you get some, you can bank, you knock in a few big wins. Maybe you can make a cup run, right? It's like there's a lot of you get some young players. I mean, they were in the midst of one of these runs when they made the final of the Europa League, or as they were, what was it called, the UEFA Cup at that point.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
Because you got to be in the Premier League to actually get a quality players, like the kind of players that allow you to make a deep run in these cups, right? So
for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So matches on for game week 38. We talked about Arsenal Everton. I see that being a pretty one-sided affair. Brentford so basically what we're going to do in this pod is we're just going to go through the fixtures a little bit, and then we've got a couple of questions at the end. And as we go through the fixtures, we can talk a little bit about the stakes for each match. In general, you don't really want to be bringing in players in matches where there's no stakes, because it's just so unpredictable, right? It's really hard to tell. And I think the teams that will have anything to play for in 38 will be Villa, Spurs, Arsenal, Man City. Is there anybody else? I suppose Luton and Forest, although they're not really fantasy relevant.
Manchester United could, in theory, get a Conference League or even a Europa League mathematically spot at this point. Okay. So you couldn't count them out, though. The rot is the rot. I feel like it really is the teams from 4th to 8th place who will have anything to play for.
Yeah.
And then if you're to your point about the teams that have nothing to play for, I always augur for the home team, because it's just such a party, fancy dress sort of a vibe. And more often than not, you see the home team just really go all out and have fun.
I will say, by the way, I have been talking about this Spurs Man City match as if Spurs, their role is to whether they're going to want to play spoiler to Arsenal or whatever. But of course, I'm only thinking about this as an Arsenal supporter. Spurs have every reason to win that game.
Is that the dumbest possible take that, Spurs will just throw this game because God forbid Arsenal win something? Grow up.
They are not.
Your club has everything to gain by getting a Champions League purse. Why would you shoot yourself in the foot like that? It's stupid.
Exactly. It's very possible that Villa lose tomorrow to Liverpool. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this will sound dumb if Villa crush Liverpool, but they certainly could. And if in that case, Spurs would just need some kind of results, against Man City to have something to play for. Game week 38. So
the generations of grandpappies who hate Arsenal, I get it. I understand that these ties run deep.
I don't buy into that narrative though either. I don't care for it. Maybe I just don't want it to be true, Brandon. But we
think better of people.
Yeah, but Brentford Newcastle. That's a weird one. I mean, Newcastle I thought was really disappointing on Saturday. That was one of the. I was watching two matches. I had a goal rush on, right, the Peacock goal rush. They don't rush too much, Brandon. They don't. They move at a
stroll.
It's a
goal stroll.
Yeah, goal stroll. But I was watching goal stroll, but I also had the. I guess it must have been the Chelsea match on Chelsea and Newcastle. Yeah, right. So Chelsea was the goal rush match, and then Newcastle was the other match that I was watching. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like it was a pretty disappointing match from Newcastle. They didn't really have, I suppose, an impressive performance from Brighton, who I thought played pretty well and had some chances.
Yeah, two good performances for Brighton in a row, more or less. And I guess the from Eddie Howe, Isak was ill, and that's why he came off early in the match. And so you could say that explains why he was a little lethargic in the match. And then hopefully that means that he's back midweek for that
he
match.
was my differential captain. I felt good about it when Haaland blanked. Of course, I don't have Gvardiol, so I was kind of like but it was like
not
well,
having
I can make
Guardiola
up.
is just sort of that's
That was the killer.
right between the
Yeah.
eyes kill shot
That was
for everybody
real.
else.
The second goal, the first goal, you're like, ugh, dang. Then I was like, well, at least Haaland didn't get the assist. Because then you start doing the math. You're like, well, if they concede, right, maybe we're looking at an 8-pointer here, right? But the second goal, you're like, oh, this is a 21-pointer.
Guardiola's celebration on his second goal is, even though like that was kind of like put the FPL season in a body bag, was my favorite goal celebration of the season, where he just started wandering away from his teammates with no expression whatsoever, and then he kind of turns around with a wry smile and he's like, "Yeah, I just did that," and starts running toward the corner flag.
He was in the World Cup. Remember, he was like it's like we kind of were all excited about him, and then it's like he's finally really like realizing his sort of Cancelo style potential. I mean, you were so hot on him at the start of the season, and then
it's a beefcake.
It didn't really. Well, yeah. I mean, just as a like as a fantasy aspect, you were like you were so on him, and then it didn't really happen until. I mean, he was around. It wasn't like he was horrible, but as a kind of amazing fantasy asset, right? He's gonna be $6 million next year.
I can't remember. I wish I could remember because this was a good sort of take. Some other podcast described Guardiola as decaffeinated Cancelo, and like Pep loves him because he can do a lot of the things that Cancelo can, maybe even more dynamically, but he's just no drama.
Yeah, without Cancelo's self-regard or whatever. Yeah,
yes.
Maybe. Yeah. All right. Well, and then Brentford, nothing to play for in that match. Although that ended up being a little bit of a barn burner. I was surprised. The end of Johan Vissa. What a fun season for him. Again, there's something about this pod right now that I feel like I'm like looking back on the season. It's like Johan Vissa is one of those guys who doesn't really ever become. He's not really a fantasy player, right? But he has been like the fact that Brentford have had like a really injury. I mean, injuries have hurt them a lot this year, right? Defensively, especially, and they lost their starting keeper too. Yeah, and Mbomo as well, right? And Raya moving to Arsenal, and then they, unfortunately, it was in terms of win over replacement, it was. I don't know what Flecken was worth, -4 wins or something like that.
Listen, all Brentford had to do this season was survive, and they did that pretty handily. So that's good.
Yeah, exactly. So, but Johan Vissa in the end, he'll have, 11 goals and 3 assists for him in the season. I think anytime you're in the Premier League and you get more than 10 goals, that's impressive, right? That's a nice season for him.
Agreed.
So, congrats to Vissa.
Yeah, and we'll see what they decide to do as far as replacing Tony or how to use those funds. I mean, I wonder if Brentford say we're going to take those funds and build up the midfield, or instead of trying to buy another baller striker, because with Mbomo and Wissa, like you're saying, I think they've already got the makings there of a good full-time starting attack.
I can't believe Ivan Toney has not had a return in fantasy since game week 25. That is kind of shocking.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I wonder what he wants now. So does he? I don't think he can stay at Brentford after everything that's transpired.
It's over. That's for sure.
So I think he can punch the Fenerbahce button. If he wants to play like Champions League football, he can go do that in a different country.
You don't think you should just punch the backup forward option? Just go to Spurs, or I don't know. Maybe I'm not suggesting Spurs, but some Premier League club.
I think there's trouble with his valuation, where he's like slightly too valuable to be that backup striker. Like no one's going to pay.
Champions League club. Like here's a club for you. Okay. Aston Villa. If Aston Villa make the Champions League next year, reunite, with Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins cannot keep playing as many minutes, right?
Brentford connection. That's interesting. I think that's I think that would suit him.
Yeah, and I mean they should have, they'll have Champions League money. They could throw him, 40 million or whatever. Or, I don't know what he's worth. It's hard to evaluate
like
him.
a really hard worker, and Ollie Watkins, and Mr. Lazy Bones, and
they're
Ivan
both great
Toney.
Passers. I mean, you could play them both together too. So
I do think like Ivan Toney's got more Harry Kane in him, like drop deep, open the play up. So I'd like to see more of that from him.
I know it's just a real, that's just a weird flu. It's like we should just treat this season like you got a knee injury early on, and it's like So of course it was a problem of his own making, but still. So Brighton, Man United. I don't really know. I mean, Brighton are keeping their heads high, which I guess is good for De Zerbi. It keeps people optimistic maybe about going to next season. Again, I don't mean to keep talking about these injuries, but it's Brighton were so hit by them this year, right? I mean, sort of some teams got hit defensively and they really got hit in the attack. I mean, just losing Solly March and Matoma was just such a killer.
Here's my pick on this game. Every game week 38 has the match where you can't keep up. Somebody is like, another goal.
Yeah.
This is going to be that match. It's going to be 4-4. Brighton.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. I just benched Bruno in my bus team squad. So, but I think he's going to stay. Well, I don't even really know. I'm not, like, I have to figure out what
I'm going to sell him.
Like, I'll probably sell him too.
I can't see him playing.
I'll probably sell him for whatever player seems fun to have from Arsenal. I mean, maybe it's Saka, maybe I just go for
I want Odegaard
Havertz or something. Yeah, you would want Odegaard. You know, that's yeah. All right, the Burnley Forest. I mean, Forest do have something to play for here. I expect Forest to score a couple of goals. This match isn't really fantasy relevant though, so I think we can just move on. Yeah. Chelsea Bournemouth is interesting because a little bit in the Johan Vissa category, although maybe a little different because he actually has been a fantasy asset. But Nicholas Jackson has a chance to be a 15-goal scorer if he can score. I suppose he's got two chances. He got 37 and 38. The second match of 37 and 38. So annoying when you score the goal and you get the yellow card, excessive celebration, bonus point killer. I mean, congrats to him. He now has, 27 points in his last 3 matches. So averaging 9 points a match at the moment. So he's figured something out, I think.
He figured something out. I thought I had figured out that he wasn't a good fantasy asset. And the moment I figured that out, it was the end of my season. I wonder though, so Bournemouth have been like a real stats darling. I don't know if it's necessarily stats, but John McKenzie, who does a lot of gameplay analysis for The Athletic, is obsessed with Bournemouth this season. And there's something about them where they're like this, they're always good enough to stymie any team, but it feels like more often than not, they don't really do it. Is the problem for them?
Yeah, I honestly just feel like they don't have enough talent. It feels like they're a good team, but it's like they don't quite have it's a lot of championship guys, right? It's like they're just guys who really probably shouldn't be in the Premier League, and they're no offense, but they just need to upgrade with a little more talent, and then that kind of system, the quality that's in place, can be sort of boosted. I mean, the fact that they moved to Travers later on is kind of interesting to me. I thought Neto was. I don't follow them closely enough to have a strong sense of that, but that seems like that's a problem they're going to have to fix in the offseason, right? Just something there.
Yeah, the backup keeper is never one that you want to stick with long term. It seems that's a problem you're going to have to solve another day.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's like transferring an injured player into your squad or something in your fantasy team where you're just like, oh, now I have to spend yet another transfer to fix this problem again.
Talk about this is my Harry Maguire problem. I can't believe I even had Harry. Sometimes you just have to look back and laugh. Right? You're like, oh yeah, somehow I have Harry Maguire in my team right now. Or I did until I dropped him for my bench boost. By the way, in hindsight, I really wish I just bench boosted in 38. That would have been the move.
There was somebody on our Discord who he just flubbed the deadline, and he's like, "Well, now the silver lining is he's like, I've got 2 free transfers and a bench boost to play in game week 38, so it's just like game on." I'm not sure how much I'd like to be in his shoes right now.
That. Yeah, exactly. Me too. I know. Yeah, it's exactly. Disaster. All right, so that brings us to, and then so we talked about Palmer a little bit as a possible differential captain. Crystal Palace hosting Aston Villa. I think that is a huge match, really. I mean, I guess Ollie Watkins would be a low key fun transfer for. Let's. It's a hard one to assess. I want to see tomorrow's match. They've been sinking a fair amount. They should. They should have enough to hold on to that Champions League spot, but
the goal they've got they're +4 goal difference on Spurs. Assuming Spurs lose to City, just if you run that through a simulation, you would expect Spurs to lose. Villa will clinch Champions League in that moment. So
Right. That's true. That's true.
The likeliest scenario is
Yeah.
Villa don't have much to play for. And then you've
Yeah.
got Palace, who are just like totally in the zone right now and look great.
Yeah, that's true. In which case, it's a proper dead rubber, relevant match. Like you might see Duran start that match, right? Like there wouldn't be any reason for them to.
Yeah, Watkins is like, please let me go to the Euros in one piece.
Yeah, exactly. Can only get 2 minutes off this season. All right. Well, that brings us to Liverpool Wolves, the Klopp farewell match. Oh, by the way, if Palace players are all good transfer options for 38
every
too.
Single one.
Exactly. Elise, Pateta, they're all.
Let's
fantastic.
be the Chris Richards podcast, Josh. We're going to stand for American Chris Richards.
That's true. He's like the cheapest guy. He's like 3.9 million. So that's Liverpool Wolves, the Klopp farewell match. I honestly, outside of Salah, I wouldn't really feel great about anybody in this match. They really can't keep a clean sheet to save their lives right now, and so
you don't think they're just going to be filled with the spirit of Klopp and absolutely murder Wolves?
I don't know. I mean, probably, but it's like there's just no reliable fantasy players in that squad. I mean, it's just incredible when you look at Darwin. I mean, he's just not good enough. I don't or whatever. I don't know what he just isn't good enough. I'm sorry, but like
he's been given every opportunity.
Yeah. It's like as a backup forward, he's fine, right? If he was like in the Diego Jota role, right, where he sort of comes in and brings energy and goals, honestly. But as a kind of reliable week in, week out player, he probably cost them a title this year.
Harsh.
Yeah, maybe that's a little too harsh, but I think they could have picked up many more points if Darwin was better. I think that is.
You ain't lying. You ain't lying.
Yeah, it is harsh though. I agree. Luton Fulham. I suppose the only thing relevant fantasy wise here is that Luton are going to have to basically like press this could be the one, Brandon, that's like the goal after goal after goal, but going both ways, right? This could be like a 6-3 kind of match. Like it could be super high scoring.
I kind of don't love it, but Fulham haven't been like a great road team this season. But certainly if you have Muniz, you're going to play him, and you'd be pretty happy to. But there's something about this fixture that just feels like a 1-0 to Luton or something weird like that.
Yeah, like something that like it's kind of irrelevant. Yeah. Man City, West Ham. Obviously, there's not a lot to say here. I think it could end up being a little bit like a couple last year with Villa, where West Ham are a talented squad, and they, Bowen on a. I mean, they're basically going to, I assume, try to play that kind of attacking strategy that got them a win at the Emirates earlier on this season, right? And so
Bowen cannot buy a goal. He hit the post again.
No, he can't. But he's certainly capable.
Yeah, he
is
of course,
creating some opportunities, and so I think like it could be fun, but it's just hard to feel like it's eventually it feels like Man City are going to put the proverbial boot on West Ham's neck.
6-0 feels about right to me.
Yeah, I was thinking like it's like 1-1 at halftime, and the final score is like 4-1. Or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Everyone, Arsenal fans are just going to be sweating profusely through halftime, and then by the 60th minute, it'll be a party in Manchester.
That feels like that could be the case. I agree. So, and then that brings us to Sheffield United Spurs, and this one's a hard one to predict because it really depends on what Spurs can do when they play Man City, and if they can get it also matters what happens when Villa play Liverpool on Monday, because if Villa beat Liverpool, they'd be 7 clear. So it wouldn't actually matter. I just don't buy it. There's the way Villa are playing at the moment. It's hard for me to imagine Villa getting 3 points from this match as well as they played at home. But again, by the time this podcast comes out, that already may be known. So this Spurs one is one I'm honestly just, I don't know what to say about it really, because I think we need to, we'll save it for the Patreon pod, this one, Brandon.
Yeah, just something's not right. The goals that Spurs scored this weekend, Spurs looked a little bit better. Like they're starting to get it together, but their attacking output still coming from their defenders. the attacking players, Brennan
Yeah.
Johnson was a very strange performance from him, and Son still.
Yeah, congrats to
Not
everyone who bought Van de
not a
Ven.
lot to love about the attack at all.
Yeah. Yeah, were you happy that your boy Van de Ven got it done? Like it was,
I like Van de Ven. I think he's wonderful.
Yeah. It was
interesting proposal. Again, going back to the Athletic, their Spurs reporter was saying, play Van de Ven at left back. So with Udogie out, you've got the fastest guy in the league who seemingly is clinical in front of goal.
Yeah,
just play him on the left.
I mean, why not? I mean, what's his name? Who's playing there right now is like
Oliver Skip started there this weekend, and then Emerson Royale before him, and
Emerson Royale was who I was thinking of. Yeah, so
he didn't really seize the day.
He did not
with
seize
his
the
start.
moment. Yeah, he was. I think he was in a lot of the predicted 11s though. Like I expected him to be the starter out there. It was weird seeing Kulusevski on the left. That did not work either. I mean, I know it was kind of like it was a required thing with Werner and Richarlison out, but that did not really work.
Yeah, but still, I agree. Kind of this is weirdly the Spurs going against the worst team in the league. It's suddenly like the hardest fixture of these to predict. I don't have a good feel for it either.
No, I don't either. I mean, and Sheffield might just go for it. I think both teams score in this match.
Yeah.
That's a fun. Maybe I'll just do that. You know, if you're a betting person, there's a bet that you can do, which is a BTTS, Brandon, both teams to score. Maybe it'd be fun just to bet both teams to score in all 10 of these games, and I don't know. It depends on what the what that's going to cost you in terms of the
clean sheets across all 10 fixtures.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a bet. I wonder if that's like if someone's going to make that a bet. Like let's look for that. That'd be a fun the always cheating betting corner or something like that. But I know some people really hate betting. But anyway, all right. Well, that's your fixtures for 38. There were just a couple of questions. Paul Drake asked about recommendations for differentials. We talked about them briefly, but I think Crystal Palace would be the place I'd look. I think that Elise, Eze, Mateta are all interesting options that I don't think are going to be necessarily the most transferred in players this week, but I think are all, which is actually part of their appeal, right? So I think that they stand out.
I think Trossard is one I'd also throw out there because as we mentioned, there are so many to pick from, and somehow Trossard is the one who has escaped, but it feels like he has nailed down that leftmost position over Martinelli, and he'll almost certainly start against Everton. So I think he's fun.
Yeah. I think those are good ones. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else who. Again, I think
Gakpo.
Yeah. Well, I thought maybe a Foden captaincy as a differential. I like that as a way to be a little bit different, and maybe. Maybe you go with like Brentford. I don't know, Boma. Like if it wasn't a free hit, maybe. I'm just trying to think of stuff that's like really off the radar. But yeah, again, I think focusing in general on teams that have something to play for, which I suppose isn't true of Palace, but they're in such good form. It's like they figured something out. They have a new manager, so it's kind of like having something to play for, right? Because they're trying to figure out what they've got for next season.
For sure.
Coggers asked about Trossard with the punt instead of buying Saka. I think it's fine. I really do. I mean, there are moments when Saka is at like peak FPL form, right? Where it's like he's scoring. It seems like he's scoring and assisting in every match, and that's not
own goal from a corner kick. Takes a pen, just like straight fantasy juice.
Yeah, and at the moment he's obviously great. He's played a lot of minutes. He's bad out some injuries this season, but I think Trossard. I also think Havertz would be another option that you can consider.
Yep.
And Red Dagger. Final question for this pod. Brandon says he's going to triple captain Salah for a final goodbye to Klopp at Anfield. That's telling me it's the right thing to do. I mean, Salah is going to score. There's no doubt in my mind. It would actually be it'd be incredible. It'd be the most shocking result of 38 if Salah did not score. So yeah, I think it's fun.
Yeah, and listen, you can't take it with you, Dagger. You got to play the triple captain now, or you don't get two of them.
It'd be so
next
cool
season.
to save them up for like 3
Roll
years
over.
and just imagine a season where you just had like 4 triple captains and 9 bench boosts. That'd be amazing.
And then you can play all 4 in one game week on one guy.
Yeah.
Just do like
what is that? 12? I don't even know how you do that. Like a Deca captain. That's 10, right? But I don't know what 12 would be. But anyway, all right. Well, that is your pod. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for, I know we sent to the YouTube link super late, but thanks to everyone who joined us that way. If you want to come watch the video of the pod, we got so into our little conversation, right? We did no screen sharing or anything. It was a straight talk, just face on face.
Yeah, I think it's a good face episode, though,
Good
so
face
people will
episode.
enjoy checking our
best
faces
face
out.
forward. That's true.
100%.
We look fit, trim. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back next week. We'll be at our final pod of the season. We'll be taking a short break, and it'll be back, sometime in July. So if this is the last time you listen to the pod this season, thank you for listening. Thanks for sticking with us. I know it was a trying season for a lot of people, and I feel like I haven't completely gotten to the bottom of why, other than just kind of the kind of exhaustion that we've all felt the last, I think there's still kind of a COVID-y sort of, everyone's
The world's in a
recovering.
strange spot.
Yeah, the world's in a strange
largely,
spot.
yeah.
Exactly. I think that's true. There's lots of reasons for that. So, but thanks everyone who sticks around. I think next year our goal is to, really just lean even more into being optimistic and upbeat and not kind of get too caught up in stuff that doesn't matter. Right.
Yeah.
Have fun with it. So make
Exactly.
fantasy fun again.
Make it again. And speaking of fun, we do like to tip our hat to the funnest people around, our producers.
Yep.
And to find out what it means to be a producer or to say thank you and contribute at any tier, go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. But big thanks as always to producers Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, our buddy Chris Howell, Babas Kuhn, James Holland, Dave Wagner-Lodahl, Nick Wright, Lazarus Janos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chinbler, Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock at FPL Merch, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Buffalo Wild Wings, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Caleb Robbie, Holger Paulson Kruger, Alex Holcomb, James Keatley, The Saint Bob Fox, Craig Jackson, Shalon F. Kadakia, Terrence O'Donnell, Heath Cram, Thomas Tislop, Noah Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vennerstrom, Dan Parsons, James C., Matthew Skinner, Fred Jacobson, Brennan, Daniel Hart, Lolly, Ben Coombs, assistant manager to Fulham FC, Eric Kite, Gareth H., Rune Sandberg, Brian Clark, and James Murray Wood. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, if Patreon isn't your bag, that's a free and easy way to help support what we do. Give us a subscribe. Rate us wherever you can. Follow us wherever you get social media. Our website is alwayscheating.com. Good luck in the final game week, Josh. Very much looking forward to the Black Horse. We should shout that out from the rooftops if you're in the New York area.
Yeah,
I guess we're going to the Black Horse. We haven't really talked about that, but we're almost certainly going to be there.
Yeah, eventually we'll get them to actually open up early, but it's a tradition that it's like Friendsgiving, Brandon. Some traditions you keep them alive because the tradition is part of the fun of it. So
we talked to a lawyer about pressing charges against the Kentucky Derby because when they say it's a tradition unlike any other, or is that the Masters?
It's the Masters.
Oh, yeah. Well, we take everybody to court. That's really kind of our thing.
The Kentucky Derby is also a very unique tradition. It's
So you got the Masters, you've got the Kentucky Derby, and you've got us going to the Black Horse. So there you go. The trifecta.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody. And good luck this weekend. Bye.
Everyone is talking about magnesium. It's all you hear about. But why? What do we know about magnesium? Well, magnesium is the #1 mineral that 75% of Americans are deficient in. If you are a woman over 35, magnesium will help you rediscover balance, energy, and vitality. Magnesium supports more than 300 enzymatic reactions in your body, including those involved in hormonal balance. From functional medicine doctors to mental well-being and female hormone experts, we all know that magnesium is the one mineral to improve all aspects of well-being and health. But which one? Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers, the trusted choice recommended by leading experts with 7 best-absorbed forms of magnesium to ensure your body receives the support it needs for overall well-being. Go to bioptimizers.com/balance today and use code BALANCE10 for 10% off. Support your journey to wellness at bioptimizers.com/balance. Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers, your foundation to optimal health and vitality.